Let's talk about buying new cars. We all love to have new vehicles, but nobody wants to pay for it, right? So it's one of those necessary expenses that we have in life. And we want to talk about some options when we're reviewing how we're going to do so. So, in our opinion, which I'm going to demonstrate here, trying to pay cash for a vehicle lets us sacrifice what we consider opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, simply put, is by making the decision to pay cash for something, you are missing out on other opportunities you could have taken, right? So if I spend money and purchase a vehicle, I can't use that same money to go make an investment, to go and buy a piece of real estate, to take a vacation, whatever it might be. It's the loss of not taking another opportunity, right? So we're going to demonstrate this in a moment here. When we talk about buying cars, there's a couple of options that happen. At its core, we are buying a depreciating asset. So I want to make sure we preface this and move forward in caution, because anytime you're trying to figure out leverage or how this is going to work, to buy something that's going to put you in debt or something that's going to depreciate in value, it is not a real asset. Just because you can liquidate it for a certain amount of money does not make it an asset, right? It's not going up in value, therefore it's depreciating or a liability to you. So let's take a simple example. So let's say we purchase, or we're looking at purchasing a car, and it's $40,000. We basically had three options when it comes to how we're going to purchase this car. You could lease as well, but we won't even get into that in this video. First, you could pay all cash. Secondly, you can get a bank to finance you. Or third, we're going to talk about what we use in terms of a leveraged wealth strategy. Now, I'm in no means saying that this is the only way to do it. This is just an option that should be weighed when we are looking at these purchases. Right now, in making this video in 2021, the interest rates are extremely low, so there's all kinds of advantages to using outside finance. I want to use this as a way to weigh other options. So when you're making a decision, you know all the rules of the game that you can use at your disposal. So number one, when we pay cash for something, means we have the entire value, and we're just going to go down to the dealership, put $40,000 down, and we're done with it. The disadvantages of that are, once you pay for it, you now own this piece of hunk of steel that is just going to continue to go down in value the second you drive it off the lot. And you had to save up probably for a long time to have that available cash. And the opportunity you give up is that cash that you are giving to the dealership, you no longer get to use. There's no more interest or anything you can ever gain on it. So you kind of throw yourself under the bus there. So the advantage, or what we're going to talk about here, is figuring out the OPM, or other people's money. How can we use that to get the asset, to still make sure that we're not depreciating our full nest egg, we're still getting some growth on our money. So the second strategy is, okay, we can go to a bank. All right, so let's say we go to a bank and they charge us 3.5% interest. And I think if the math's right, that's about, at 60 months, that's something like $728 a month. That's the payment. And all in, interest-wise, what we'd pay on that over 60 months is something like $3,600, roughly. That's the interest that we would be paying if we've got a 3.5% interest rate. Let's just pretend that's the number. I'm sure you might be able to get lower. That doesn't matter. So what that means is we're giving up a few things. One, we're giving up $3,600 we're giving to the bank. We're also giving up control. It means we are locked into that payment no matter what. So all we got is a piece of debt and a depreciating asset, right? And we're signed up for this with no control. There's no options. We're kind of fully out of control there, although we are getting money at a pretty low cost. It's not very high overall. So the third option is to recognize that, one, I personally would like a little more control over what I'm doing. And if we are trying to, with our leverage wealth accounts, to start to take back some of the responsibility that the banks are being the middleman in and making this, these percentages on these loans and taking all the control, we'll say, well, why don't we act as our own bank? Now, the idea is, instead of taking the $40,000 in cash and buying a vehicle, we could deposit the $40,000 into our policy, right? So maybe we've got, $100,000 in there, and we drop another $40,000 into the policy. What does that do? Well, for starters, we know we get our guaranteed growth on our policy from anywhere from 4 to 6% every single year, compounding interest on that money. So if we moved it from cash just to let it sit in this policy before we bought the car, we're winning already because we're getting compounding interest. From there, it's a matter of going, okay, well, couldn't we just make this exact same strategy for ourselves? Couldn't we separate our policy, make this the business, and make ourselves the consumer or the client or the person, separate the two and say, couldn't I do this exact same strategy for myself and myself or my bank take this $3,600? Couldn't I just pay myself that by funding this out of my own policy? The answer is yes. The way you would do that is through what's called a policy loan. So the insurance company is going to loan you their money. They know you're good for it because it's already in this policy. And they're going to loan you out the $40,000. You're going to go down to the dealership. You're going to purchase the car, and you're going to set yourself up on these terms. And maybe you want to charge yourself a little more interest or a little less interest. And the idea there is you can still make those payments back to the loan, to pay down the loan, because the insurance company is going to charge you simple interest, right? So if you go to the bank, you're getting charged compound interest, amortized interest. If you go to the insurance company, you're talking about simple interest. It's something like 5 to 6%. Simple, much, much more advantageous for the borrower to pay simple interest. So now you are capitalizing in a couple of different ways. One, you've created some cash flow because you're moving the money from one area, right? So you're actually paying yourself back over here, paying the loan back. And you're essentially getting the best of both worlds because you're getting the interest that you could have paid the bank, right? So that's coming back to you. And you get control, right? So a bad month happens, something happens in your business, something happens personally, and you can't make the payment. The insurance company is never going to ask you for a statement. They're never going to throw you any sort of late payments. They know they have to pay you that death benefit. So you're collateralized, meaning those terms and how you pay back the loan are completely on you. You get to set them. If you pay it back at all, you don't have to. But that interest is going to keep accruing. So if you just wanted to pay this out in 36 months or 1 year, or you never wanted to pay it back, you can structure that loan any way you might want. So those advantages there put you back in control of your money. They allow you to capture some of that interest. You make the payments on your terms. And most importantly, the $40,000 that you had in the first place, right? The whole point of this is how cash is not the right answer. By moving into this policy, through that whole 5-year period, what's happening? You're growing at 4 to 6% on that $40,000. So the opportunity cost of using that cash elsewhere gets lost, where you're really gaining, something like $7,000 or $8,000 in compounding interest just by putting it in this location, right? You get nothing if you pay in cash. You get nothing in terms of growth if you pay and finance it. And now you're getting paid in a couple of different ways here. You're getting compounding growth on that lump sum, and you're getting the interest that you're paying yourself by stepping in and being your own bank. Now, with all that said, again, you are purchasing a depreciating asset. So it's an important caveat to recognize that if I were to leverage this $40,000 out of my policy, that is an opportunity cost as well. Because if I do that and purchase a car, I can't take that $40,000 and go buy a piece of real estate. I can't use it to invest in my business. So just weigh that when you're making a decision. You have the opportunity to do this, step in and be your own bank in this situation. But if you have an opportunity to use this cash, this loan elsewhere to get a higher return, maybe that's a better option. And maybe you can get a bank loan for lower, right? So no way saying that this is an end-all be-all solution, but just realize that if structured properly, nothing changed. It had the same amount of money, the same car, the same terms, but much more advantageous in turn on your terms, your advantage, if you know the rules of the game.